We are coming up on the halfway point roughly in 2026, and I wanted to take a moment just to look back at the games that I've been playing over the past 6 months. There's been a lot of great stuff, and well, here's some of my favorites. Crimson Desert. This game released and more or less took over my life for a solid month straight. I got far more playtime and entertainment out of it than I was anticipating, and best of all, it was just consistently full of surprises. I was surprised at how massive and dense the world was, surprised at the sheer quantity and depth of systems, surprised at the difficulty of boss encounters, and surprised at the variety of combat options once you get beyond the opening hours. The game simply did a lot of things very right, or at least things that were very appealing to me. I found the world engaging and immersive. It did a great job of delivering this sense of going on a grand fantasy adventure. Really felt like a properly lived in space, towns teeming with people, enemy camps everywhere, different factions of NPCs in conflict, and a wilderness full of animals and bandits. Plus, there's all sorts of secrets and puzzles to discover all over the place, high level of world interactivity, with there being a lot of stuff to do, find, and interact with, and these various points of interest. And I also really appreciated the slower pacing of the game. I mean, literally, I think I spent my first 10 hours in and around the starting city in Hernand, exploring the city for a bit, going out to a nearby camp, learning about some new mechanics such as fishing, doing a little bit of that, then going back to town, learning about bounties, hunting down a few targets, then going back to town again. Then I learned about gear upgrades, so I would go out and farm materials, get into some fights in the process, then go back to town and upgrade my gear. I mean, it's to the point where for a while it was a bit of a meme where people would say, wow, I've played for 100 hours and I haven't even left Hernand yet, which is the starting zone in the game. But really, it's only like half of a joke, because it's very much so the case that that could be your experience. Also, I really enjoyed combat, had a good feel to it, combined with this rather absurd variety of ways to engage with enemies. Somewhere around 50 different types of attacks and unique things that you could do when fighting. It's really cool. Lots of points of interest with hundreds of enemies as well, almost feeling Dynasty Warriors-esque, and some pretty cool boss designs and mechanics with, again, some seriously difficult encounters. All of that on top of the fact that the game is just a looker, really phenomenal visual space to explore, on top of running pretty darn well considering. Man, just like every day I would sit down, play for a bit, and come across something new and interesting. So all told, I played somewhere around 160 hours, and I was nowhere near finishing the game. Like, I haven't finished Crimson Desert yet. I think I got about 3/4 of the way through the main story quest, and still had a big chunk of 2 zones left to explore, along with a fair bit of the sky area known as the Abyss. It's an insane game in so many ways. I think what's even crazier has been the post-launch support, with the developers addressing many major pain points that we had at release, such as improving movement and flight to feel more responsive, adding a ton of quality of life like additional fast travel points, bank storage, on top of many other things. They also introduced a bunch of new stuff like permanently tameable and rideable bears. The list goes on. And that is just considering what I have kept track of when I was playing the game. It seems like every other week I'm seeing some post on Reddit about Pearl Abyss releasing more updates for the game. I know Crimson Desert didn't click with everyone, especially people who really want a good story out of and dialogue in their games. But for me and how I approached it as more of like this fantasy sandbox to play in, I adored the game. I had a fantastic time overall. Survival games are one of my favorite genres, and this April we had the pleasant surprise of adding a new banger to the list, and that was Windrose. This game is basically what I had always dreamed Skull and Bones could have been, a proper seafaring pirate adventure with the added layer of being a survival sandbox. Think some hybrid of Sea of Thieves, Valheim, and Enshrouded. That's basically Windrose. So you start out, like many survival games, you're on the beach with nothing, and then you go through a couple of hours of the typical survival loop, gathering resources, building up a simple base, and crafting your beginner's gear. Eventually, you acquire your first boat and rescue the crew to man it, and then from there on out, you set sail exploring this massive archipelago, hopping from one island to the next, either just for the sake of exploration or for trying to complete quests. In the process, you'll be exploring ruins, caves, and dungeons, taking on camps of rival pirates and their leaders, battling Blackbeard's fleet out on the seas in naval combat, visiting the the mythical island of Tortuga to trade with NPCs. And yeah, just engaging with all sorts of pirate shenanigans, all in service of acquiring resources, items, weapons, and gear. And the game just has you continuing this process. You keep exploring, hopping from island to island, engaging in combat, gathering and completing quests. While this is happening, you gain XP, leveling up, and lets you put stats where you want, picking talents for preferred playstyles. You'll upgrade your gear, which lets you deal with deadlier threats the further out you push in the archipelago, upgrading your ship to make it more deadly and durable, pushing out further and further, moving through the tiers. You got the starter tier of the coastal jungle biome, then you move into the foothills, and eventually the current final tier in the game is the Cursed Swamp. And then once you're strong enough, you take on the pinnacle bosses of each region, which lets you move into the next one, rinse and repeat. That's kind of the overview of the game. It was heaps of fun, and once more, it's really kind of what I dreamed of Skull and Bones, what they could have been. But whatever of Ubisoft's game, we have Windrose, and it's great, and it's only just getting started. This was an early access release. All told, I basically finished my playthrough, having maxed out my gear and stats at around the 60-hour mark. Certainly could have gotten more time as well, but I just didn't want to burn myself out, as I do know more updates are coming. But yeah, I've had plenty of fun, definitely got my money's worth, and we'll be waiting on the next big update before diving in again. The original Slay the Spire was one of my all-time favorite deck-building indie games for years, and now it's basically been replaced by Slay the Spire 2, which more or less is exactly that first game, but with some tweaks, new additions, and improvements. And this is more than simply a deck builder, it's also simultaneously a roguelike. So you start out each run with a core deck of basic cards determined by your character or class that you select. From there, you venture up the tower, choosing from multiple branching paths with determined and sometimes mysterious nodes all throughout. You clear each room one by one, gaining new cards in the process, visiting shops to pick up additional cards and artifacts, or landing on mystery nodes that can have any manner of crazy things happen, both positive and negative. Working your way up the tower, trying to take as little damage as possible, craft your deck, and put yourself in a good spot for facing the final boss of the act. Then you move on to the next one. Now there's way more nuance to this game than this simple description, but that's kind of the TLDR. In terms of what makes it so good, there's lots of really cool combos, interactions, and crazy setups that you can create based on the deck that you build with the cards and artifacts that you collect along the way in every single run. And every run's a little different because you're going to get different things and you're going to deal with different encounters. There's also a higher level of progression where the more you play, the further you get, the more new things that you unlock as potential pickups in your future runs. And then once you clear all of the acts and defeat the final boss for the first time, you unlock the next higher level of difficulty where you run it again, but things are more challenging, and this process continues on and on. I think Slay the Spire 2 is really one great example of one of those one more run kind of games where you just want to keep going every time you die, or even if you successfully complete a run, you want to go again, see what new combos, what new setups you get. It's really fun, fantastic game, and I know it's something I'll be revisiting on and off over the years. Straying a bit from my typical PC stomping grounds on this next one here, but I did want to include Saros on the list because I thought it was legitimately fantastic. This is a PlayStation exclusive, unfortunately, although Housemarque's prior game Returnal eventually got a PC port. We're not expecting Sony to continue this trend going forward based on things we've heard. That aside though, if you do have a PS5, Saros is an easy recommendation. The game was super impressive. It's a third-person bullet hell action game with the sci-fi narrative. It's very fast-paced, frenetic, and has a satisfying gameplay loop. You're moving through these procedurally ordered levels, dodging this relentless array of projectiles, jumping, dashing, shielding, and counterattacking whenever you get the chance. There's both in-run as well as an overarching progression systems, so you'll get more powerful the longer you play, but then also you've got the randomness of upgrades on every individual run. Traversal is fun, the combat is rewarding, and I even thought the narrative stuff was pretty neat. I think what really sold me on the game though was the boss fights. They are just a spectacle. It's probably the best way I could describe it is it's like watching a fireworks show, every boss encounter. Yeah man, great game. Was happy I dusted off the PS5 to check this one out. Farever is a game that sort of came out of nowhere and knocked me on my ass This MMO Lite still has a ways to go for sure, and they've had a few bumps in the road with server issues on their release, but I think the core foundation is so good, and I've had so much fun in my initial playthrough, that it's one of those games I intend to be revisiting throughout its early access process. This is basically a Zelda-like action-adventure shared world game with MMO elements. So you've got action combat that rewards mixing attacks with perfect blocks to deflect incoming damage. There are MMO-like classes featuring the Holy Trinity. You've got the warrior, rogue, mage, and priest. It's got a weapon system that actually functions as half of your character's combat abilities, where depending on the weapon that you have in your main hand, your offhand, and your arsenal slot, you have got a massive selection of skills and passives to choose from, mixing and matching and changing your playstyle. Currently, there's around 30 individual unique named weapons in the game, and every single one of them is kind of like a subclass. Every of those 30 weapons have their own active and passive skills, and again, you can mix and match these, changing up what's on your hotbar as well as the passive bonuses that you get. It's a really cool system. So for example, on my warrior, like yes, I've got my core warrior skills and then my warrior talent tree, but then also I was mixing up weapons. At one point I was playing with water axes that gave me a damage buff and an AoE smash that heals, or the two-handed axe with a big heavy hitting charge attack and a cone that slams and stuns. I had a one-handed axe that had a range ricocheting attack that caused bleeds and also let me heal on critical strikes. I found a one-handed sword with spin attack and stabbing. There's a water shield that will pulsate AoE damage and also heals me, or a fire shield that breathes a cone of fire and lets you deal AoE damage after any perfect blocks. The list goes on, and again, each of those weapons can be combined, making up your suite of abilities that you engage with in combat between the main hand, offhand, and arsenal. Really, really cool system that makes just the basic classes that much more interesting. World exploration is great too, with loads of traversal mechanics. You've got a mount, a glider, all manner of launch pads propelling you skyward, and then especially come the second island that's currently in the game, the vertical exploration is huge, with you going deep down into these cave tunnel systems. There are underwater dungeons and plenty of floating islands high in the sky. Currently there are 10 dungeons in the game, ranging from full-blown exploration with traversal puzzles, groups of basic enemies and elites, and a boss fight at the end, to these single room encounters versus especially challenging bosses. There's also hard mode versions for the current max level of 20, letting you run them again for better gear. And then the game's got resource gathering and jobs with things like blacksmithing, cooking, enchanting, potion making, etc. Yeah man, the game is just a plain old fun adventure, all the while you're on these servers with other players running around all over the place. It may not be a full-blown MMO to the scale of a World of Warcraft, Guild Wars 2, or ESO, but it does certainly check many of those boxes and makes it feel like a romp through this fun fantasy world with other people that you're going to see in the environment. And the fact that they're just getting started and there's loads more content planned for early access, I am very excited for this game's future. I already feel like I've got my 20 bucks worth with everything I played so far, and I cannot wait for more. Okay, so those are my favorite new game releases that came out here so far in 2026, but there's also been a bunch of older games that got updates that I've played a lot this year. Diablo IV got its latest expansion with Lord of Hatred last month, and it's safe to say that I think the game is as good as it's ever been, or at the least, this is the most fun I've had playing D4 since it first released. There's more content than ever, the systems are more fleshed out, and the endgame got a new presentation along with a progression system on top of the typical just gear collection and Paragon boards. So with this expansion, they added the new campaign, quest, and the new zone of Skovos to explore, 2 new classes with the Warlock and my personal favorite, the Paladin. Skill tree got an overhaul, they got rid of the boring passives and now gave every single skill multiple choice points, kind of feeling like you're actually getting a piece of gear that modifies your skill with every point in the tree. War plans were added, and this sort of changes the structure and adds modifiers to the endgame with a new war plan skill tree. They added the Echoing Hatred endgame activity. There's new power customization via the Talisman, which adds set bonuses to the game, and much more crafting agency thanks to the addition of the cube, where you can remove attributes, add attributes, and even turn white items into uniques. And also, if you like fishing, they've added fishing. Yeah, I had quite a fun time playing through this expansion, leveling up my Blessed Hammer Paladin, zipping around the map, slamming down from the sky with my Tyrael-like Arbiter form, spamming hammers that are spinning around me constantly. It's just been loads of fun. And then after the campaign, moving into endgame, I did enjoy how the war plan system incentivizes trying to mix up your activities rather than spamming the same thing over and over again, just for efficiency's sake. I know efficiency is a big thing for a lot of people in ARPGs, but I like it when the games promote variety over maximizing your experience, currency, or loot drops per hour. Yeah, D4 was fun. It's still not quite to the level of my enjoyment of Path of Exile 2, but nevertheless, it is another ARPG that I enjoy having in the regular rotation. And speaking of ARPGs, No Rest for the Wicked is another one that I've continued to enjoy this year. Although it's not the exact same type of game as a Diablo or Path of Exile, its differences are in fact what I like about it. You know, when people talk about Path of Exile 2 having this more deliberate combat, even though that is the case, it kind of pales in comparison to the slow, chunky, and methodical combat of No Rest for the Wicked. This is truly a Souls-like combat system in an ARPG package. The movement, the attacks, the animations, everything is very deliberate, weighty, and impactful. And the game even goes as far as to have an armor weight tier system, where the lighter stuff you wear, the more nimble you are and the further your dodge rolls. Or weapons that scale based off of your stats. So if you pump your strength and you use an S tier strength weapon, you get a huge damage boost for that weapon. On top of that, the game really incentivizes exploration with a level design that's straight out of the Dark Souls playbook. Loads of verticality, paths winding back on themselves, and shortcuts abound. You're kicking down ladders, lowering bridges, activating gondolas. You're regularly finding new entry and exit points to areas visited prior. It's just incredibly well designed and a fun space to explore. So this year, they had a big update which added co-op to the game, now letting you play in groups of up to 4 and scaling difficulty accordingly. They even give bosses new multiplayer specific attacks and mechanics. There's been a bunch of improvements to the crafting system. They reworked bows and added new armor tier sets. Performance got some big updates, and tons of quality of life improvements, like the town upgrades are now instantaneous, resource gathering gets a mini game for better yield, they added more fast travel points, new intro tutorials, more enemies to harder difficulties, and a whole bunch more. The game is great, it's still just in early access, but I loved what I played so far and had some fun revisiting it earlier this year. Another game on my regular revisit rotation is the one and only World of Warcraft. Now, I'm still happy to dive in and check out what's going on with retail WoW every now and then, but it's really classic WoW that keeps and holds my attention. In fact, that's what I spent a majority of my time playing between last November up until like February. So I started out running some hardcore classic, which truly delivers a unique experience with the stakes of every pull are potential character deletion. It does a good job of forcing you to slow down the pace and pay more attention. It's also, in my experience, led to some of the best open world random encounters and interactions with other players, helping each other out, saving someone from overpulling in the Fargo Deep Mine, partying up to take on difficult elite quests, and then locking in with your party of 5 if you're brave enough to run instance dungeons. It's just a total blast, dude, and honestly, if any of my regular gaming friends ever asked, hey, do you want to do a hardcore run at any point in time, I would just instantly drop whatever else I was playing in a heartbeat because I enjoy hardcore WoW that much. So I played hardcore for a couple months before swapping over to the normal servers during the Burning Crusade pre-patch window, and man, that too was a blast. Experiencing classic vanilla WoW, but with the Burning Crusade changes to classes, itemization, leveling, and new systems, along with having dual specking, this was the closest to delivering what feels like Classic Plus, beyond what Blizzard attempted with Season of Discovery. I loved leveling a new character in the TBC pre-patch. It was a great time. Yeah, WoW is absolutely a game that I'll be coming back to for the rest of my life, and I'm so super pumped with all the buzz going on right now about Classic Plus being revealed at BlizzCon this year, if not prior, and even potentially being ready to play at some point this year. It might be copium, but whenever it comes, I'm diving in. Classic Plus cannot wait for you to arrive. It's gonna be a lot of fun and a lot of time playing WoW more. Again, more WoW. All right, and before we go, I do have just a couple of honorable mentions. First up, there's Soulmask. I dove into this for the first time this year in earnest, checking out its 1.0 release and that new Egyptian-themed update. This was a nice surprise. Like, despite kind of the janky appearance, this turned out to be quite fun and had way more system depth and interesting mechanics than I expected. I think the big standout feature being the whole tribe system, where you recruit NPCs to your tribe and can task them with doing literally any of the survival game things that you do as a player. You can have NPCs harvest resources. They will go out, chop down a tree, and then return that stuff to your base and put it in your designated storage containers. Crafting items. You can then have another NPC take the lumber out of that chest, and then you turn it into planks at the mill. And then another NPC could take those created planks and use it to build up new parts of your base. The list goes on and on. It's really well done, and it's also fun to see in action once you get it all set up. You have this army of NPCs just running around doing the survival crafting loop for you, and this lets you focus on doing whatever other stuff you're interested in, exploring the world, taking on enemy camps, battling bosses, even building flying skyships, whatever. I didn't reach max level, I didn't complete the game, but I did enjoy what I saw in the days that I played. And then lastly, I just wanted to give a shout out to Marathon. This game's been getting a lot of heat, which I totally understand. It's not resonated with the masses like Bungie or Sony certainly would have hoped it would, and as such, the game has performed below their expectations, resulting in that some $70-odd million removed from the company's perceived value, according to Sony themselves. That said, I think it's a well-made, solid FPS action extraction game. Enough that I had fun for the week that I gave it a go. I'm just not as into this as I would have been another Destiny equivalent experience where the main thing on offer is PvE-focused content, exploring spaces, killing robots, doing dungeons, and seeing other players around you, then having maybe some PvP activities as an additional form of content that you can check out on the side. When it's just intense PvP, constantly on the edge of your seat for every second of every 20 to 30 minute run, I can have fun doing that for a little while, but not for weeks and weeks on end. Those days are behind me. Leave it to the kids, or just to whoever has the appetite and aptitude to be fully engaged and locked in for your entire gaming session. I will do it here and there, but a lot of my gaming nowadays, I just kind of want to chill. So yeah, I enjoyed Marathon, but it was never going to be a game that I played consistently for much more than a week or two at a time. Now that said, they did actually just come out and reveal the fact that they're going to be adding some new modes to the game. One of them is a PvE exclusive mode. So maybe my old gaming hat can jump in and really enjoy it. I'll give it a look, who knows. But yeah, I thought it was a well-made game. I just didn't stick with it long term. That's really it. And yeah, that's pretty much my list of my favorite games thus far in 2026, both the new releases and updates to some old favorites. It's been a great year so far. We're also just about to get this massive update for Path of Exile 2, which that will be on the end of the year list, no doubt. It would have been on this list, but I kind of wanted to do this right around the start of June. So yeah, PoE 2, I'm going to be playing the crap out of it. Like, that's just not on this list because the new update hasn't come out yet, and I really haven't played much in the past 6 months. But besides that, looking forward to the coming 6 months and all the other great games that we will be playing. And I know there's a fair few games that were much beloved that came out in the first half of the year. Some of them I simply haven't gotten around to yet, but be sure to let me know, like, what have your favorite games been so far this year, or game updates that you've enjoyed. Let me know if there's anything you think I should check out that I haven't yet in the back half of the year. Thank you as always for watching. Appreciate ya. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.